Hello, this is Shooting Nerd, and this is yet another in the series of post-tactical rifle training reviews that I'm doing on all the equipment and accessories that I used. This one is on the Midwest Industries foregrip or Quadrail, whatever you want to call it. As I mentioned, if you happen to read the or watch the more detailed installation review that I did when I was putting this thing on here, it looks rock solid. It went together reasonably easily, and it just looks kick-ass. And from an ergonomic standpoint, if you're not wearing gloves, it's not too sharp, but yet all the Picatinny stuff fit on there just fine. But unfortunately, that's where the good news ends. First off, I'm not sure how well it shows up right here. And I'll actually have if you look at the intro on this, I've taken a picture, I'll make sure I use a picture of this. But there's corrosion on all of these screws. Every single fastener that they provided has rusted. That's from the set screws that attached to the gas tube, to the socket head cap screws that they used to fasten the top and the bottom together, to the socket head screws that they used here, the pan screws. And on top of that, when I brought this thing home, or when I brought it off by the end of the day, it was actually rattling around. There was some top and bottom play. If you watch the video that I have when I'm actually assembling on this, I applied a good bit of stress to it, put a lot of torque on it, make sure it was tight. I did use Loctite on it, so it wasn't a matter of it loosening up, because even when I took it apart, it had actually loosened. The fasteners were still all well fastened, but I'm sorry, corrosion and loosening is just not acceptable. As far as the corrosion, get some higher quality black oxide screws. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. Go to McMaster Car. I'm not saying anybody that buys this should have to do that, but the folks at Midwest Industries should provide higher quality fasteners. These didn't do that hideously. I mean, there's no corrosion inside of there, and some of what you're seeing here actually is just the Loctite. However, there is corrosion on there, and you can actually see that there's corrosion on these where the screws fasten into. Next, you might not be able to see it, but there's grooves down here, and this is what actually locks and prevents this thing from rotating. It's kind of got little grip surfaces, and there's some up here as well. These did fine. These, however, chewed into the bottom of the rifle and actually corroded. You can actually see a little bit here. Now, granted, when you have aluminum on steel, it's going to be the aluminum that gives way. However, I'm not going to gripe about the fact that it took some of the bluing off, because that's partly what it should be doing. It should be getting a nice, strong grip to it. But overall, I really don't know why this thing loosened up. It was, like I said, 8 or 9 hours of shooting, 600, 700 rounds through the rifle. I don't think it should have. Now, for me, since all I had on here was the flashlight, that wasn't terribly horrible. But frankly, if I'm spending, I think, $130 for this, I shouldn't be seeing any failure. I expect this thing to hold up. I expect it to stay tight, and I expect not to have to deal with corrosion. Again, though, the aluminum itself is still in really good shape. I'm not seeing much of anything in terms of wear and tear. There's some stuff here, although I'm not quite sure whether that was me screwing something up, but it's aluminum. If you beat on it, it's going to get dinged up and messed up. But from an assembly standpoint, I'd say this thing's probably an 8. It's not the easiest thing, and it doesn't index itself very well. I think there's some things they could do, such as have the front end of this index or lock into this little bad boy right here and help hold it in place. Not crucial, but it would be nice to at least provide a gasket. Oh, one thing I know I mentioned in that other video. Since this thing is not held in place, I was afraid that rattling was going to drive me nuts. I never noticed it. I never got around to putting silicone on it, and never was a problem. So, one of the things that I was concerned with did not end up being a problem. But seriously, I'm concerned about this. I don't want to have to worry about having to tear this thing apart every single time I go out shooting. Now, the screws that came loose, there's 4 screws that hold this piece down into here. And if you watch on that video when I assembled it, I got them tightened down there pretty good. I don't know how much tighter I physically could have gotten. My original thought was that because this is aluminum and the barrel is, and the barrel's steel, that there was a what do you call it? thermal rate of expansion, which is the way everything gets bigger as it heats up. Aluminum happens to get bigger faster than steel does, so you can actually get some loosening up. However, when everything cooled back again, it didn't go back. If anything, since it was colder out when I was done, this theoretically should have been actually snugger than when I started out. I don't see any evidence of stretching or anything, and I don't see any evidence of the screws pulling out or anything like that, so I'm not sure where that additional play came in. And I mean, it wasn't a huge amount. I mean, it was more like probably about 3 to 5 degrees and just more of a rattle that was in there, but I don't know, kind of annoying to me. So maybe I could tighten this down a little bit more, and perhaps now that it's had a chance to seat in a little bit, it might perform a little better. I don't know. But I'd give that a 5 or a 6 overall. That's a big concern to me. At this point, though, I don't know of any other alternatives that provide you with solid metal fastening to an AK that can provide almost optical quality stability. I wouldn't want to, if you had just a red dot, I'd think you'd be fine with it. If you wanted to mount an ACOG, I think you'd be in serious trouble, especially if you had any magnification, because if you're trying to shoot out 100, 200 yards and your optic's moving around a degree or two, you're not going to hit your target. So I'm going to have to do some further messing with this and see if I can get it ratcheted down, and maybe talk to a couple of AK specialists to see what they might recommend if there's something better than this, or maybe they might know a better way to fasten this to it. So at any rate, that's my review on this, and I'm actually going to be sending the folks at Midwest Industries this video just to let them know what my concerns are. Maybe they might actually have some suggestions, and if they do, I'll actually annotate that and do that as a follow-up video. At any rate, this is Shooting Nerd. Take care.